All right, let's do it live on a Tuesday edition of Cleveland Browns Daily. Merely Beau and Gibbe here on what is becoming a rain-soaked Tuesday, my friend. A little brisk.
I feel like the whole week.
Yeah.
You know, I'm supposed to have
You
a
got
little
golf tomorrow,
outing
right?
tomorrow, and boy, like last night I got home and my grass was almost dry, and I was like, okay, well, it's soaking in and we'll be good.
Not now, brother.
Not great right now. Now there's some concern.
No.
It is pouring pretty good and has here all day.
Yeah, it was nice this morning on the east side until probably – really, it was nice even when I left. It hadn't started raining yet. On the Turnpike over is when I got –
Really?
It's when I first hit it.
You guys got lucky.
I was about – when I hit like 77, at that point is when the rain – and then it was pretty rainy the rest of the way through. So it's obviously headed that way. We haven't had it yet. Did you watch last night? Were you interested in this?
I did up until I think it was just a few minutes into the third quarter. I fell asleep.
Okay. Do you remember? I know that you do. There was for the audience out there, the sports documentary, The Last Dance, where telling the story of the Jordan titles with the Bulls and in his time. They're incredibly popular. They had it in the can, and it dropped during the pandemic, so it was like original content. My God, here's something no one's seen before.
And it was awesome.
It was great. It was really great. They had the kind of the unfiltered version and then the made-for-TV version. And one of the things that they did in the series is they, in my opinion, they pumped up the opponents that Jordan was facing. My contention has been that he didn't beat a great team ever for a championship, that there were a bunch of good teams but not great teams, and at that time in the league – in the mid to late 90s when he was winning most of those titles, most of the 90s, that the league was a little watered down, that they added 4 expansion teams at that time. High school kids started coming into the league for the first time. Full European assaults hadn't happened yet. There were a couple of guys here and there, but it was a big deal if they were over there. And I think it backs up if you look at the teams that they played for championships.
Well,
there isn't one that was great.
The NBA Finals were the Eastern Conference Finals. And you're path to the Eastern Conference.
Right. And even those, like the Knicks teams, and I guess this brings me to my point, they made a big deal out of like this Indiana team that they got by the last time. And that Indiana team was fine. It had Mark Jackson and Antonio Davis and Dale Davis and, of course, Reggie Miller. And in one of the early games of that series, in the final run of the Jordan run, Reggie Miller hits a 3 at the buzzer. And all of us who were watching remember this immediately. This was before GIFs or social or anything, that the camera went to Larry Bird, and Larry Bird was stone-faced, emotionless. Like, yeah, that's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah, he's supposed to make that shot.
He's supposed to make that shot. That's the way we drew it up. That's what I felt like watching Joker last night. So he, at the end of the game, he shakes hands with everybody from Miami. At one point, Gibby, he goes to find somebody who, and I've watched this whole series and much of the Eastern playoffs, I didn't even know who this guy was. He was deep on the Miami bench.
The last guy he found?
Yeah. The guy's walking away.
Yeah.
He pulled him to, like, hug him, and I'm like, I don't know who that is. That guy didn't play. Miami's played everybody. That guy didn't play, and he embraced him and hugged him, and away they go. And then they get him on the mic, and Lisa Salters is like begging for some sort of emotion for him. She keeps trying to press him on what does this mean and all of this. And he's pretty flat with all the answers. And at one point he says, and this was the last thing he said to her, the job is done. We can go home now. Like he just wants to go back to Serbia and race horses. That's the whole operation. Then the post game, they say, when's the parade? And he goes, Thursday. And he goes, oh. He just wants to go home.
And he said it again. He goes, I just want to go home.
I just want to go home.
Yeah.
Serbia must be a hell of a thing, man, because Denver, like Peyton Manning had no ties to Denver until he was traded there, and now he, like, set up shop.
He resides.
Yeah. He was always going to be in, like the thinking was he was going to be in Nashville or something like that, and instead Denver. So Denver's a great town, and Jokic can't wait to get out of there. So I thought that was it reminded me a little bit of Bird, how, like, well, yeah, that's what you're supposed to do.
He was crushed that parade is Thursday.
It really was. Head in hand.
He put his head down.
Head in hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, do you love the game? Do you not love the game?
I think he loves it. I just think that this guy, you want to think about this from the perspective of it's a second-round pick. He is a second-round pick. I started digging in on him. There's a quote from him in the pre-draft process where he said, they asked him about like basketball philosophy, and he said, I'm paraphrasing here, but he said essentially, it's pretty simple. If they don't guard me, I score. If they do guard me, I pass it. And that's kind of the approach to it. I think he's just very workmanlike in his approach. But it's pretty wild. Think of all the things that have to happen for them to win a championship, because for the majority of our life, Denver has been irrelevant.
Yeah. I mean,
really have been.
The biggest moment was when Dikembe Mutombo and the 8 seed upset the number 1.
They beat the Sonics. The Sonics were the 1 seed. I want to say that was in 94 or 5.
Something like that. Yeah.
Somewhere in there.
Him laying down and holding up the ball.
Yeah. And Dikembe Mutombo shaking the ball like that. Like, they had that, and then I'm not old enough to remember David Thompson, neither are you. But you heard whispers about David Thompson and that he was Jordan's favorite player growing up. They had the Alex English teams in the 80s, but they were never really a threat for the Lakers, certainly. And then they had Melo in 03, and they had some decent teams then, but never could get over the hump.
Well, and I had to pull it up because I don't want to do it in an injustice, but Schefter tweeted out the moment that Jokic was drafted. I don't know if you've seen it.
I have.
It's a Taco Bell commercial. It's in the middle of a commercial, and it pops up at the bottom. Current selection.
Just for perspective, like I saw that they're doing like advertising some sort of Taco Bell thing.
Yeah, it's a quesarito. One of my favorite things.
It's off the menu, right?
It's not on the menu. Sad.
What's a quesarito? What are you getting at?
Queso, steak.
Okay.
It was still on the menu a few months ago. I have not seen it since.
Okay.
But it's they flatten it down, and
okay.
It's a burrito but with queso in it and steak.
Okay.
It's very good. I enjoy it.
Very good. But he outlasted it.
Yeah.
Which is pretty remarkable. He also feels like the answer to the trivia question of like latest round best player ever. He's in a very short. I mean, it's like him and Brady. Like Montana was a 3rd or 4th round pick. Brady was a 6th. Like there's a few of those guys that just for some reason got missed, and he's now on that list of like, how did all these teams pass on this dude?
Yeah, but I guess I don't know from an NBA standpoint, but I feel like a lot of money is devoted to overseas.
Oh my God,
scouting and whatnot. So yeah, I guess I can see that, but I'm also like, he was overseas. I mean, when was he drafted?
I want to say it was like 14 or 15, somewhere in there, when he was drafted. He's still in there. They're the overwhelming favorite to win it again.
Yeah, he's 28 years old.
Their whole team's in their prime. They have some young guys who are not even have yet to reach their prime.
2nd round pick, number 41 in 2014.
Yeah. Yep.
And by the way, I mean, he makes $32 million a year. It's not like he makes some crazy.
Well, I don't think his number has. I don't think he's gotten like the big deal yet.
No, I don't think so either. Because
he'll get 50 or whatever. I mean, he's going to get that, whatever the max NBA is. That's what he's going to get whenever it's up. 5th straight year of a new champion. Different champion every year. We talked a little bit
about that yesterday.
Yeah, and then if you go back where no repeat champions, a different team every year out of the league. First time for Denver in 42 years, reminded me of 16, obviously. When you think about how long you wait. Denver's obviously won other things. They've won Super Bowls, and they won the Stanley Cup just last year. But first time for that franchise to win a championship, and it did bring me back a little bit to 16 and just how damn difficult it is to build in a – it feels like even in that sport, I know this seems odd considering, the name of the show, but it does feel like it's almost harder in that sport to build a team capable of winning a championship because it is the best team wins. It's a best of 7. So if the health is there, the best teams usually win.
It's not who's playing the best at that time.
No, or who gets hot or a fluky thing. Like best of 7 for 3 straight series, 4 straight series it's a battle of attrition, and the best, healthiest team wins. There's really no way around it. You can't fluke your way to a championship in that sport.
I'm thinking about the Jokic comments, and I just wonder, like, you want to go home. Again, is that a direct correlation to, hey, the NBA season's way too long? Like, and because you played this far into June,
a long year.
Like,
yeah,
camp starts again in 3 months.
Yeah, it's long.
Yeah,
it definitely is long. It's shorter. It's got to be the second shortest though, because baseball's 162 games from February to to November. Hockey starts the same time as NBA, and it's just now finishing. Hockey actually starts a little before NBA, if memory serves.
Middle of October.
They're more spread out because of the rest days. So hockey's actually a little bit longer. It is long, but they're never going to get rid of games, and they're never going to get rid of – there's too much currency in it.
Yeah.
There's, too much IP in it. So they're going to keep those – they'll keep those series. They'll keep those games. To go best of 7.
But I think if
it's
this,
long though.
This is his first foray into going this deep.
Yeah.
And he's like, maybe I'm used to being done in mid-May.
Right.
And getting an extra month off.
Imagine if you don't make the playoffs and you're done April.
Yeah.
April 10th.
Yeah. I mean, when did the camp season end? Right around the draft?
The lottery, yeah. I would probably end of April.
Yeah.
You're a month and a half later.
Yeah.
And they're still playing. So I'll miss it. I enjoyed watching it. I enjoyed it on ABC because they were pretty good on the 8:30 tip, relative, 8:42, but I mean, it wasn't 9:30. Like it was watchable. I could watch them all, and I wasn't exhausted.
No, I think I would argue the playoffs might have saved the NBA.
They've had a great playoff. They've had a great playoff from a rating standpoint. They had a good season. They've had a bunch of different teams win it in the last 5 years. So I mean that's pretty positive. Yeah, it's in a good spot. League's in a good spot right now. Yesterday, after we got off air, we officially unveiled a new dog logo on the Pat McAfee show. So I just refer to them, the one on the left, the one on the right. So when I took all the dogs, all the original ones, like to my kids, like they were overwhelmingly one on the left. There was overwhelmingly. And when we were on the show, at first glance, I was one on the right, and Nathan was too.
Yeah.
He was a little bit more emphatic. But I wasn't sure necessarily. I thought they both were really good. I did prefer the one on the left. I loved the one on the left. And I thought the big differentiator was it looked great on gear. But I think it's cool. The one on the right was right there. They both were close. I thought they both were really good. And now it's just a question of like, how do you integrate that into everything else that you've got going on?
Yeah, I don't know what's next.
Yeah, like
from that standpoint.
How much of a logo branding will it be for the organization that has, the logo's a helmet. We had Brownie at midfield last year. You got the dog, like you've got the stripes. Like, how does it all fit together? We get really bright people who will answer those questions, but I think that'll be the next thing is how does it all fit?
I don't think you could go wrong with either dog. Clearly the people have spoken. I think the players have spoken.
Yeah.
We did some social media stuff with the players on it, and that was pretty evident as well. So, hey, great. I am interested to see what the next steps are. Excited to see what the next steps are.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like we have these things in our past, like when we first started, with the elf, when it first started coming out like 4 or 5 years ago, but it was used very sparingly. Like you just see it here or there. And it was mostly the proud elf, the proud brownie, and then stiff arm brownie showed up. We're like, oh, we've got this guy too. And then you start to dig in, you go, actually, they use a lot of different elves through the years. And I just am on our website, clevelandbrowns.com, and I just see like the logo history. And, like it's pretty interesting. Like it's the helmet. The majority of the time, it's just the helmet in various incarnations of it. Is the logo. Like from 1970 on, it's basically just the helmet. Until you get all the way, and I had forgotten this entirely, but I wasn't connected to the organization at this time. I didn't even, frankly, live in Ohio for some of this time. But I had forgotten that they had that B with the helmet, or with the football, with the striping on it. I had forgotten that.
Well, I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was great.
And at the same time, we had this dog.
Yeah.
This dog was around, like from 13 to 14.
That was a rough one. That was a rough patch. I would say this, going back to the whole helmet thing, your idea, and maybe it was I think it was Kenny Rhoda. We
You talking
took
about
his
the
story,
32?
putting the 32
And I don't
on
know
the
if
helmets.
it was his original. He's how I saw it.
Yeah.
So I gave Kenny credit for seeing that. But when I saw that of putting the 32 on the helmet,
Makes all
that
the
feels
sense
like a
in the world.
no-brainer. Like, because we've had that before in the throwbacks.
Yeah.
And I think it would be really cool to have 32 on the side of the helmet as a proper homage for Jim Brown. I had a guy email me about having seen if Nick Chubb would wear 32. My hunch on that is knowing Nick a little, he doesn't strike me as the type that would want to make something like that where I think he'd love to pay homage to Jim. I just don't know if he would want it to be like in the center of all that.
Yeah, that's you're right.
I don't know if that adds up.
He's not a flashy, not out in front. There's a way that he will do it.
Yeah.
And there's a way the team will do it. It's to be determined.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of ways to make that right, but I've never seen anybody do that because not anybody else has a blank helmet.
Yeah.
We're the only ones.
Yeah, everybody else has a sticker in the back. You have the whole helmet you could use.
Yeah, and to put it on the side, I think would be really cool to be able to do that. So we've got a lot of things to sort out, but we do have a dog. So
we have a dog.
That's locked in. Is there merch? Is merch already available on it?
I believe we have T-shirts, and they might be at the trailer, but it was raining sideways.
Oh, not for us personally. I just meant for like the fans. Like, can the fans
I believe
get their
sooner
hands
rather
on them?
than later.
Let me pull it up. I'm over. It feels like anywhere if you want to buy gear like the way it is now, it's like if it's not Fanatics. Oh yeah, front and center. Yeah, it's on a hat. That you can get it right now on a hat on a 47 brand hat in white, gray. Looks like kind of a denim, brown, and orange.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you, I think it looks best on the white.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it pops the best on the white.
Oh yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
That'll work. Yeah, the orange makes it a little tougher to see. But
Yeah. The white's the answer. I think the white 47 brand with the dog is the
yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And are we going to call is he Swagger?
I don't have an answer for that.
Yeah. Bootsy will want to name the dog. He's definitely going to want to name it. That's a lock.
I don't mind the charcoal gray.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a bad one either. I think that looks good on it. And obviously, as we get closer here, that logo will be popping up on a lot more things.
Yeah.
So, all good.
Yeah. So there you go. That got done yesterday as well. All right. AP will join us in the second hour of the program. We'll do a little better or worse. Our good buddy Armando Salguero will join us on the Dolphins and their offseason. We continue to take a look around the teams in the league. You have that to look forward to, which is nice. Some relatively big news out of Buffalo this morning that, quite frankly, is just a little confusing. Maybe a Carucci explanation on this because I don't understand. I don't understand what's going on over in Buffalo. Quite frankly, I'm not sure if they understand what's going on over in Buffalo. Plus, Amari Cooper at the podium. We're off and running on a Tuesday edition. Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland. Your favorite four-legged companion. Barking Backers presented by Milkbones, the Browns' newest club for pet parents worldwide. Sign up today at barkingbackers.com. Barking Backers, the fan club for dogs. Interesting morning over in Buffalo. Bills mandatory minicamp. Head coach Sean McDermott saying Stephon Diggs is not in attendance for mandatory minicamp. McDermott saying he is very concerned. So you talked about this. You and I were talking about this off air. He passed a physical. His agent says he's in town, but he just didn't show.
Diggs' agent says his client is in Buffalo, has been in Buffalo since yesterday morning, took his physical, met with the head coach and GM the past 2 days, and that the Pro Bowl wide receiver will be there for the entirety of minicamp. Well, he wasn't there today, and it was day one of minicamp.
He may be in Buffalo, but he's not at the minicamp.
Yeah. So
the last time we saw Diggs, he was yelling at Josh Allen in a playoff loss. That was the last time we saw him.
Yep. Oh, I know.
So
I don't
know what to make of that.
Yeah, I don't, and I know Carucci's digging into it. Agent, again, he is not reported for day one of minicamp. Confirmed that he was at the team headquarters for pre-minicamp medical testing yesterday. I don't know. This goes back to he was pretty ticked off at the end of the season last year.
Yeah.
And maybe we all blew it off and thought it wasn't as bad as it was. But I'm beginning to think that there is something amiss with Stephon Diggs.
I think that there was a window for Buffalo, and it was last year.
Yep.
And now it's going to be harder going forward for them. That Miami and New York are now on the come in the AFC East. The last couple of years they've kind of had that to themselves, and they weren't able to capitalize at the highest level. Like they probably feel like 2 years ago the Bengals got their spot in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the clock is definitely ticking, and the window is closing on that run. And
I think defensively they're not great. Everybody loves them, and I'm like, they got to get out of their own division.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a bit of a challenge for them. And this just adds to it. It's mini camp. Like I'm sure this will all blow over. We're a long way from September. My guess is they'll all be on the same page by then. But I think it's interesting that McDermott said he's very concerned that Diggs is not there.
Yeah. Normally you're kind of like, we're ironing it out. We're working through a few things, and we hope to have him here tomorrow. Not the I'm very concerned.
Yeah. No. This from CBS Sports, your boys. So following coaches on the NFL hot seat going into 2023, Kyle Shanahan not on this list.
No, not this year.
But Mike McCarthy is on this list. Brandon Staley is on this list. Ron Rivera is on this list. Josh McDaniels is on this list. And Arthur Smith is on this list.
Yeah, there were a few others. Tampa Bay's coach, the Saints.
Todd Bowles, he just started.
Yeah. And by the way,
year two?
What do you got at quarterback before you throw? That's why I didn't even put him on the list for thing or not a thing.
I wouldn't think. I don't think Josh McDaniels is on this list. Like if you do this thing or not a thing style, Mike McCarthy is on the hot list for the Dallas Cowboys, thing or not a thing. I would say, yeah, thing.
It's always a thing. It's Uncle Jerry.
And it's
Who
also,
knows?
yeah, it's definitely, that's a thing. Like there's you want to talk about windows, they've got a shot. They're one of a couple of teams in the NFC that's got a shot. And yeah, for sure. Brandon Staley, yes, thing. On the hot seat, no doubt, right?
I mean, he's been on the hot seat for me for the last year and a half. I thought he was on the hot seat a year ago at this time.
The only thing you got to remember with them is, are they willing to pay buyout money? Like, is Spanos willing to pay?
That was my whole thing with the Raiders.
Yeah.
I mean, their owner is crazy enough to fire him, but I don't know what his money situation is.
Well, so I would say not a thing. I think Josh McDaniels is at the beginning of a very long leash.
I agree.
Like I think he's going to tear that thing down. If Garoppolo can't play this year, it's not that difficult for them to tank.
It's not his fault.
No. I mean, he could, the Gruden-Mayock regime absolutely wrecked it from a
talent
standpoint. They couldn't hit first-round picks. I don't buy Arthur Smith at all. I would say not a thing on Arthur.
The only thing that
year two?
No, it's actually year 3.
Is it really?
Yeah, hold up. I can.
Did he get a Matt Ryan year 2? He must have.
I think he did.
Okay, Okay.
Here,
So
I
he's
have
going
it right
into,
here.
He's going into year 3?
Year 3, his record's 14-20.
Well, they didn't draft a quarterback in the last 2 drafts.
That's what not
and
in
the
the
first round.
And you didn't make a run at Ravens QB.
Yeah.
When you probably should have.
I mean, they wanted our guy worse than anything.
Oh yeah.
They wanted Deshaun. They were all in trying to get Deshaun, and it didn't work out. I think one of the most interesting. They're not an interesting team, but I think an interesting franchise spot is Washington, because, their defense is too good to tank. They've got enough weapons on offense, but at the same time, like Sam Howell at quarterback, really? Are we sure? He was regarded pretty well after his sophomore year at North Carolina, and then as a junior kind of fell on his face.
Yeah, this is year 4 for Ron Rivera. Remember last year, he didn't realize he had to beat the Browns to stay in playoff contention.
Right.
Like after the game, he was like, "Wait, we're out?"
I think he would be a thing, because he was hired by Snyder.
Yep.
I think to be the front man and suffer the slings and arrows for the transition from Redskins to football team to commies. And I think with new ownership, which comes in when Josh Harris comes in, I bet he wants his fresh face on all of it.
100%.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing. Dennis Allen with the Saints. I don't know where the Saints are going. I mean, he only had 1 year under his belt. He's 7-10. I mean, they'll have a quarterback this year, Derek Carr. I mean, it's a winnable division for him with a guy like Olave and some weapons. He's got a good defense. He might be, but I don't know where New Orleans is going. I don't know where anybody in the NFC South is going.
No.
What's Tampa's path right now? What's Atlanta do? Like, Atlanta's going to play a quarterback. Like, every team in the NFC South is content to just junk it up at the quarterback position.
Yes, they for sure are. That's exactly it.
Yeah, other than Carolina, everybody else, well, we're just going to see what happens with Desmond Ridder or our former guy. And
well, yeah, I mean, clearly, like Tampa Bay feels like they're just pushing the chips in, right?
I guess. I don't know. I mean, what do they have? I mean, defensively, they're okay.
Yeah.
I mean, offensively, they've got wide. Are they good enough to win their division? Absolutely. If they get even decent quarterback play, they could win their division.
They're not getting it out of our guy.
No, they better be looking to Kyle Trask, but
yeah, and he had a good stretch out of. I was just trying to see. Trask had the start to the good years last year at Florida, and then it kind of tapered off a little bit. I was trying to think. So they've been. Is this just the second? Oh my gosh! So the commies are stuck with the commies for another 4 years.
What?
Unless they give them, a special exemption with new ownership, because it's supposed to be 5 years. So they've only done it 1 year. They've got 4 more years in the Commanders.
Well, you're going to have it this year no matter what. So at least you're halfway through.
Yeah. And then it's just a matter of, like, if I were him, I'd just rebrand the whole thing. Red Hogs or Red Tails, Red Wolves, whatever.
Yeah, if you're a new owner, I feel like you have to be able to go, hey, can we even after year 3, maybe our first year as owners, we got to keep it as the commies, but we're prepared to rebrand it. Can we rebrand everything?
I'd much rather be the Washington football team, honestly.
Yes.
Than the commies.
Yes, it was way better.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think most of these are a thing.
Yeah, I think most of them are. I think the only one that isn't is McDaniels. And I still think Smith is kind of more on the outside looking in. I think the rest of them all feel like it would be very possibly even likely that they could end up being, casualties at the end of this year. What did you make of this, as we go off of the football for a second, this new indoor golf league being launched by Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy? So it'll be in prime time.
Yep.
It'll be on ABC. It'll be Monday nights. It's being done. This is the part where I think it's going to be tricky. It's done in an indoor arena that seats like 2,500 in Palm Beach area.
Yep.
And the first 2 shots in the competition. It's 2 hours long.
Yep.
Each match is 2 hours. The first 2 shots are going to occur against a green screen.
It's the golfers will hit long-distance shots into a simulator the size of an IMAX screen.
Okay.
Before moving to a short game area for chipping, bunker shots, and putting. It's a 135,000 square foot arena.
It's huge.
Yeah.
So they'll have live studio audience there to cheer.
1,500 to 2,000 people.
They will have. I'm curious, like, how do they place the ball on the third shot, or what would be the second shot on some?
Like if you're in the rough,
right? What does that look? Is it actual rough or is it synthetic grass? What does that look like? My guess is that people will watch this initially. I have a hard time believing it'll have staying power, like something that's there year in and year out.
It's very interesting. Like the guys that have committed to play, obviously Tiger and Rory, John Rahm, Justin Thomas, Colin
Big
Morikawa,
names.
Matt Fitzpatrick, Xander Schauffele, Max Homa. So the article, why it could actually work, the equity alignment, it's going to be owned by 4 different groups. TMRW Sports, 54%. The PGA Tour, 18%. Like, was that done before? Was that done before or after the Saudis? The individual teams, 18%, and the players, 10%. The structure aligns incentives across all major stakeholders and forces everyone to focus on growth. The celebrity investors on this?
Oh, it's a who's who.
Yeah. Josh Allen, Shohei Ohtani, Arthur Blank, Shaq, Dwayne Wade, Kevin Durant, Tony Romo, Justin Timberlake, Justin Bieber.
Yeah.
Macklemore? What?
Yeah. No, it's a who's who.
I mean, 15 weeks, I think it's interesting.
I'm going to give it a look. I just think it's, is it something that's sustainable, and how much will that – I'll say this. The last time they tried something like this in prime time was the Battle at Bighorn. This is 20-some years ago. But they would have, like, Monday Night Golf, and it was, at that time, the first couple of them were like Battle at Bighorn out in Southern California, and it was like Tiger and Jack versus Seve and Sergio.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And they would play at night. They brought in the lights. And it had a lot of juice the first couple of times, and then it did peter out after.
What does it say about the state of primetime TV?
Well, it says
you're going to put this on.
Well, it's a good job out of you. That's the next place that I was going. What it says is it's really hard to create stuff that's watched. It used to be you roll something out on a Monday on CBS and it was getting 20 million viewers.
Yeah.
That's over.
Nope.
That doesn't happen anymore. So, if this thing can do 6 or 7 million, 5 million, I mean, for perspective, like the Stanley Cup playoffs are like 2.5 million. Stanley Cup finals, only like 2.5 million people watching it. So what's viewed a win? Is 4 million a win? Probably.
Could be. Yeah.
6
if
million
it's done
a win?
right.
Yeah. And if it doesn't come at a huge production cost to you, the network, which it won't.
I think this is the interesting one in all this as to why it can work. The social and gambling content. Your ability to bet on shots.
Yeah,
and
for
your
sure.
ability
you can live bet it.
Which it sounds like it's going to be.
Yeah.
They'll have a gambling component creating friendly banter that performs well on social media.
It'll come down to, I think, too, how does it look? We're used to seeing golf in these picturesque vistas.
Yeah.
Like, how does it look when it's in an arena?
That's a great question.
How do they film it to where it looks cool?
Yeah, when you're hitting basically into a screen.
Right.
like I do in the off season.
Yeah. I mean, you're not going to see ball flight. You're not going to see. We're so used to seeing those things, and none of those things will be in play at this.
Unless it's like you could take the video game component, and when you hit the ball, it switches to that screen, and it shows the flight of the ball. But
maybe like the Tiger, or I guess it's not
Tiger.
Yeah,
now,
it's like
Tiger
PGA
Woods.
Tour or
Yeah.
whatever it's called. Maybe that's it, where it flips in real time to the ball flight. The production will be key. They're definitely going to have to land the plane on that.
I just wondered, with the PGA Tour having 18%, when was this done? Was this done before the Saudi deal last week?
if they were this close to the finish line.
I mean, now how are Rory and Tiger feeling about that this morning?
Well, I'll tell you what. Did you see who's talking today at the U.S. Open?
No.
Brooks is. Phil is not. DeChambeau is not. Rory is not. So none of those guys are talking.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's the USGA saying lock it up.
We don't want to have this.
We don't not having the distraction.
Yep.
Or if it's the players saying it. For all of them, they'll be available after their rounds. But that's more of a scrum versus a
podium.
A podium. And there's a different feel to those two things. Podium is much more measured, and everybody gets their questions, and a scrum is kind of a fist fight. But none of those guys are talking at the U.S. Open, which starts in 2 days out at LACC. So the more I read on it, Gibbe, the more I'm convinced that this last week was a holy hell, this is about ready to leak. We've got to get this out.
Yeah.
I think that's what it was.
The fact that no player knew.
Yeah.
Like, that Netflix special, I can't wait to see what those reactions are.
Yep.
With the cameras running. I don't – the U.S. Open this week took on a whole different meaning.
Oh, my gosh.
Given what's happened in the last 7 days.
Yeah, for sure.
I can't wait. And it's going to be prime time.
Yeah, we'll
which
get a
will
lot.
Be great.
The course looks cool, too. I've never seen LACC.
Neither have I.
On TV. But I've seen some of the images I've seen this morning look pretty cool, so I'm excited.
It almost looked like a PGA championship or a Open championship with the long grasses, and I'm like, wow, that doesn't. Yeah. I don't think of that when I think of U.S. Opens, but.
Well, when's the last time it's hosted a major?
I don't know the answer to that. While we look that up, can I play you Shannon Sharp's tearful goodbye to Skip Bayless on Skip and Shannon today?
Let's go.
Because he was leaving once the NBA Finals were over. Well, I thought maybe it'd be a couple days, maybe it would last through the week or like a week and a half, or you know what I mean? That there would be nope. Today it was your last day, and here's the goodbye between the two of them.
And last but not least, Skip Bayless. You fought for me, bro.
Did I?
I'm here because of you. You've allowed me to share the stage with you. You've allowed me to share the platform. I'm going to cry in the car, but I'm not going to cry now. The opportunity that you gave me to become what I became, I'm forever indebted to you. I'll never forget what you did for me. You've helped me grow more than you ever know.
Okay, this is not easy for me either. But
one more thing before you go, Skip. Okay. One more thing. All I ask is when you lay your head on that pillow at night, I gave you everything I had.
You did.
I gave you everything I had.
Which is why I want to thank you for all you have given to me. When I first took this.
And last.
You processing this?
I don't understand.
They hate each other.
Well, or maybe it was all, I don't know. Maybe it was one of those things where it got too close to the truth. Like maybe you got cut a little too close with all the act and event.
I gave you all I had.
I gave you all I had was strange.
This is it's a TV show.
It's just a TV show, man.
Dude,
that's all it is.
That's it.
Quite honestly, very few people watch.
Correct.
Based on the amount of attention it gets, very few people watch it.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I
wonder if he has something else lined up. Like, does Shannon have something else?
I don't know, because he's already been knocked off, like, the networks.
Yeah, he was on that years ago.
Yeah. And so he's off of that. So now what?
I'll say this for the Skip Bayless and, like, Stephen A. That's a hard job. It's a really hard job to have a take that is so strong on everything. You can't have a tepid take.
Oh, and it's almost like, whether you sometimes you're not going to believe it.
Right.
But you got to talk yourself into it.
Well, he did that. He does it with the LeBron's coverage that he does. Like, it's so overwhelming that it's like you're so committed to the bit there's no way he believes what he's saying on it, but he's so committed to it that he does. It is hard to go that hard at something all the time. It really is in our business to have that type of. So I have a ton of respect for that to be able
Yeah, absolutely.
to bring that energy every time. The LA Country Club has never hosted a major. This will be the first one. The course has been around since 1897.
Well, I'm liking this the more you talk about it because it goes back to what we've talked about and playing courses that don't host majors.
Yeah, so it hosted the LA Open in 26, 34 to 35, 36, and 40. It hosted the Walker Cup in 2017, but has never hosted a major. So this will be the first.
I like it.
Yeah, first men's major in LA in 28 years, and the area's first U.S. Open in 75 years since LA had a U.S. Open.
In that big a TV market.
28 years ago, I would think it's got to be Riviera, right? Yeah, 28 years ago it was the PGA at Riviera in 95. That's a long time. And there's great courses there, but I'm guessing that it's kind of like Scioto down in Columbus, which is an awesome track. There's really no place for people to park. There's no place for the commercial aspects that come. Logistics are just impossible at these places. Like you need to have, like the way they built Muirfield down in Dublin, where it's built for television. A lot of these old tracks aren't, and so there's no place to put 150,000 spectators in the middle of a city. You just can't do that. Like Bel Air, you can't put them there.
No,
there's nowhere for them to go. So
wow,
yeah, there you go. All right, coming up next, we will go to the podium. Amari Cooper coming up next. Listen to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, a sports betting part of your Cleveland Browns, coming soon to Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Cleveland Browns 2023 schedule is here. Get your single game tickets now for all the great matchups at Cleveland Browns Stadium. Visit clevelandbrowns.com/tickets to purchase today. And now let's head back to the podium. Wide receiver Amari Cooper.
Nice to get in some 11.
You're down.
Get back out there and play some almost football.
Yeah, of course. It's always fun to come out here and put my skill set on display. So having a lot of fun.
Going up and getting that touchdown the way you did, does that give you a little confidence that you're where you want to be physically coming off that surgery?
Yeah, of course. Just to come out here and be able to feel good again, it's a great feeling. You never really want to play hurt. It's not very pleasant, but you got to do what you got to do.
7-on-7s are all offense usually. You guys look like you did everything you wanted to in 7-on-7s. Is that the way it's supposed to look to you?
Yeah, I mean, you have no pass rush. It's really like pitch and catch out there. I mean, obviously the DBs make plays sometimes, but it's not a level playing field for them when we're doing 7-on-7, so it should look like that every time.
Amari, what were your thoughts on Deshaun saying last week that he would love for the team to add DeAndre Hopkins?
I didn't see that, but who wouldn't? DeAndre has been a very great player in this league. Obviously, they have a lot of chemistry. If I was him, I would want the same thing.
If that took catches away from you, how would you feel about that?
You said what?
If adding DeAndre Hopkins would diminish your catch total, what would you feel about that?
I mean, yeah, you had a great receiver like that. That's probably going to happen because there's only one ball. Everybody got to get their touches. So, I mean, as long as it's helping us win, I wouldn't have a problem with it.
Hey, Amari, obviously you guys have banked more reps with Deshaun. What was most noticeable to you and how different he is this time a year ago?
He looks in a bit of a better groove. Just, having that long layoff, of course, you're going to lose some form of rhythm, but he looks like he's really getting that back.
Back to the wide receivers, Amari, like that room, now you've seen him on the field, just what's your vibe on having Elijah here, Marquise, obviously you, Donovan, David, like just your vibe on that room overall?
Yeah, the vibe has been pretty good overall. I mean, even other position groups are seeing it. A lot of plays are being made out there coming from the receiver position, so it looks good so far.
Amari, if the Browns do sign DeAndre and you and him are on the field at the same time, that's a pretty darn formidable wide receiving core to have to go against, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's more than one way to skin a cat. I think our skill sets are a little different, but we both get the job done. With DeAndre, he's pretty unstoppable with the way he uses his hands and his body to position himself well to make the catch. So it'll be pretty good.
Amari, with the guys that you've added already, the Elijah, Marquise, Cedric, like they all have something that maybe you guys didn't have the exact same thing here last year. Like just having those different kinds of guys with different skills so far, how much of a difference in the offense and in the pass game do you notice? Yeah,
I mean, the more the merrier. The more guys that can make plays, the more plays that are going to be made. It's just that simple. So I think that's the philosophy behind it.
This time of year, Amari, everything gets overanalyzed. But for you as a player, what do you look for during minicamp to get out of it or to come out of it feeling good going into summer vacation?
Just the culture that we're building. How we all interact with each other in the locker room. How the vibe of the practice is going. Are we being disciplined enough to practice the right way? Just the little things right now.
From what you can tell right now, are you going to be 100% first contact practice and training camp?
God willing.
How much did that injury affect you last
year? A lot down the stretch. Like I said before, it just wasn't very pleasant to play through it. But it's just a part of the game. But it definitely affected me, yeah.
Have you had any issues in the rehab since you had that surgery in February?
Little things here and there, but nothing that was not expected.
Amari, when Deshaun talked to us last week, he talked about just overall like feeling more comfortable in his second year. I guess do you guys feel that from him as receivers that he's settling in more? Yeah, I mean he made a throw today, and right when he released it, I said great throw. I didn't even know if it was a great throw, but I just felt that it was, and it was right on the money. So it was not to me. No, I wasn't in. But yeah, he's definitely
getting more comfortable, like he said, getting his rhythm back, looking like Deshaun.
Was that the one to DPJ over the middle that he threaded the needle?
Amari, do you see some young guys out there like flocking to you, kind of talking, especially when you were a couple weeks ago when you were working to the side out there talking to guys? Do you see that maybe increasing?
Yeah, I mean, we all communicated. That was our number one goal at the receiver position, as a collective, to communicate better with each other. So yeah, they've definitely been asking me questions. Should I ask them questions? I'm coming back off of injury. I often ask them how I'm looking on routes and stuff like that. So just better communication overall.
One of the stories last week, Amari, was Marquise and just how fast he really still is. Like, what is it, when you see him out there at, 31? I mean, that's pretty impressive, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very impressive. He's doing something right. I gotta tap in with him. He looks like he doesn't just look good. He looks like he feels good as well. So that's a credit to him taking care of his body and being a pro.
What do you think that vertical threat will do for the rest of you guys?
It's going to do a lot. I'm already seeing it. First of all, Deshaun loves throwing the vertical passes downfield. So I know he's going to throw them. And Goodwin, he isn't just fast, but he's a football player. He knows how to track the ball. He knows how to run those deep balls. So I think it's going to be phenomenal for us, for sure.
I know you guys are going to be throwing the ball more with Watson the full season, but how many actual new plays are there? Do you see a lot of new plays that you're running?
Yeah, of course. You gotta be able to come up with new plays and new concepts. It's a copycat league. I mean, stuff that was working in the league 10 years ago, teams catch on really fast, so you always have to be able to adapt. So, of course, we've been adding new plays.
How about Elijah? What's he bringing to the table? What does he add to the core?
Yeah, he's adding a lot. He's another threat, another guy who can get open, create space, and make it easy for Deshaun. So that's what I'm saying. Like, we got a lot of threats in the receiver room now. So we'll see.
All right, coming up next, our good buddy Armando Salguero will join us on the NFL and the Dolphins offseason. That's coming up in about 5 minutes. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. All right, let's get a little smarter, kids, in the second hour. We head out on the Twisted Tea Hotline, brought to you by Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea, official sponsor of your Cleveland Browns. Keep it twisted, Cleveland. And that's where we find our great friend Armando Salguero, NFL writer, long time on the NFL beat and the Dolphins beat, now at Outkick.com, joining us there. Armando, thank you so much for taking the time. Let's start big picture NFL, and big news out of Buffalo today with Stephon Diggs not showing up, and some interesting comments from Sean McDermott, where he says that he's not sure where he is. What do you make of this situation up there?
Well, he was there yesterday.
Yeah.
He was there for the pre-minicamp physical. Stephon Diggs showed up. I was told that he was healthy, so it's not an injury situation. And he was there this morning, and then he wasn't there. So it's a strange situation. It's mysterious. I reached out to someone who is not close to Stephon, but is acquaintances with Stephon.
Okay.
And he told me that he thinks that it has something to do with Stephon not being happy, that the Bills aren't adding talent on offense this year. And, that's not exactly true, because they drafted a tight end early in the draft, but they don't have the kind of cap space to have been players in the Odell Beckham Jr. sweepstakes. They haven't shown interest in DeAndre Hopkins. Dalvin Cook has told people he would welcome the idea of playing in Buffalo, because James Cook, his brother, plays in Buffalo, and he'd like that to be a combination backfield. But the Bills haven't shown interest in that idea either. And I think Diggs is, he sees the landscape. And the Bills, they've got to improve to get past the divisional round, which they haven't gotten past the last couple of years, regardless of how good people think they are. And to do that, you got to get better.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you've been around this game a long time. I look around the AFC, and I think about everything that we've done here in Cleveland to try to be amongst that top group. Obviously, you're down in South Florida, and everything the Dolphins have done. You've been around a long time. You ever seen an arms race like this, like we have right now in the AFC, with this many teams this good, or that believe they're Super Bowl contenders?
Never seen it in one conference, because, if you thought the AFC was good last year, then, obviously the New York Jets go and pluck one of the better, if not the best quarterback in the other conference and bring them to the AFC. It's like you go down the roster, and obviously the Browns with Deshaun Watson are included in this. And it's like every team in the AFC that's vying for a division championship is thinking not just division championship, that's goal one, is thinking Super Bowl, because they all have elite kind of quarterbacks.
And they're all chasing that dude in Kansas City, right? And so it's like you can – and by the way, they've won it a couple of different ways. They won it when they had Tyreek Hill and Kelsey, and then last year they won it as they kind of transitioned out of the post-Tyreek Hill years. So it's almost like you're doing all of these things to try to get better, and then – that dude's out there waiting for you in Kansas City, and that's the other tricky part, is you got this unicorn out there.
Right, and the unicorn has a great coach.
Yeah.
That's a tough combination. Obviously everybody understands that Patrick Mahomes is amazing, right? He does amazing things. But Andy Reid and that offense and the way that he coaches and the way that he schemes things up and the way that he on offense can diminish his weaknesses and amplify his strengths, to whereas the defense is no, we want to deal with your weaknesses, and Andy Reid is like no. We're going to hide our weaknesses from you today. We're going to deal with we're going to have say. It's not the defense doing what the defense gives you. It's doing what Andy Reid decides he's going to do.
Yeah, it certainly is. Let's get back to the division you're certainly very familiar with, and that is the AFC East. You mentioned Rodgers obviously going to the Jets. It seems to me there's a wide range of opinion on how good he'll be right away. I am of the opinion that he will be. To me, this feels a little bit more like when Peyton Manning went to Denver than it does Tom Brady going to Tampa Bay, although Tom Brady's really good too. I kind of think Rodgers is going to go nuts a little bit with that type of talent that he's going to have around him. What do you make? How much do you think he's still got in the tank?
So this is going to sound like, the angry guy or even the pessimist. For the record, I think Aaron Rodgers is great, right? But I recognize that he's 39 years old and he's going to be 40 years old in December. And I recognize that 40-year-olds, they slow down some and, they become somewhat injury prone. And I say that to say this. The Jets tackle situation is terrible, awful. Dwayne Brown is 37 years old, coming off a shoulder surgery. He hasn't really been able to do much this offseason. He's going to be fine as long as he's what? Healthy.
Sure.
Has he been healthy? No. Is he young enough to stay healthy? He's 37 years old. On the other side, Mekhi Becton is young enough to stay healthy, but he's played like 2 games in 2 years because he hasn't been healthy. He's been out of shape. He doesn't like playing right tackle. He wants to play left tackle, which he won't do. Other than those 2 things, the unhappy right tackle who's never healthy and the 37-year-old left tackle coming off an injury, they're fine. Everything's great on the edges for the New York Jets to protect their soon-to-be 40-year-old quarterback.
So how do you have the pecking order in the AFC East heading into training camp?
I think it's the Bills first. Depending on what happens with Stephon Diggs, right? Because that's not a good look. I think it's the Dolphins second because people aren't recognizing what they did this offseason, and what they did was they went out and hired the best defensive coordinator available, and that's Vic Fangio.
Mm-hmm.
Vic Fangio didn't do great as a head coach, but he is a Hall of Fame caliber defensive coordinator in the NFL, and everybody understands that. And now he's the Dolphins defensive coordinator. And oh, by the way, they also added Jalen Ramsey to play cornerback, and they're going to team him with Xavier Howard, who's himself a perennial Pro Bowl cornerback. So I've got them second. I've got the Jets, coming up third. I wouldn't be surprised if 3 teams, by the way, make the playoffs from the AFC East.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if 2 make it from, the AFC North.
Yeah.
So I've got the Jets behind them, and then the Patriots. Mac Jones, I'm sure, will be better. I don't think anyone's saying Mac Jones is elite.
Yeah.
I don't think he's in the Aaron Rodgers or Josh Allen, school. And I don't think that he's got a lot of weapons around him. Bill O'Brien, is going to be better because he's been an actual offensive coordinator. The experiment last year with Matt Patricia was a failure because Matt Patricia had never been an offensive coordinator, and Joe Judge, who was the quarterback coach, had never been a quarterback coach. So, wow, Bill Belichick blew that one, right?
Yeah, it's crazy, man.
Right now, you mentioned the arms race.
Yeah.
The Patriots are lagging behind in the arms race.
Yeah, they are. And I think when you look at this, God Lord, you go through that Dolphins roster, it's just a who's who, just star power everywhere. So much speed, so much athleticism, so dynamic. And I think last year, when healthy, Tua answered the questions we had going into the season about what type of player he could be. Because when he was healthy, he was sensational. The problem was he wasn't healthy, and at the end, it was pretty scary. It took a long time for him to get out of concussion protocol, and I guess give me a kind of a feel on where you are with Tua health-wise, and how nervous are they down there that he could get through a season?
they're not nervous, but they should be.
Yeah.
And the reason is because Tua Tagovailoa is not a big guy. He's about 6 foot and 220. And his history has been that he gets hurt. And it's not, last year it was concussions, and concussions plural, too. The year before that, it was, I think it was an elbow, and then it was a finger. The year before that, it was a finger, and he was coming off the hip in college. In college, it was a hip. It's been something every year that has caused him to miss games. And when he misses games, either directly or indirectly as a result, the Dolphins lose. And last year he missed 5 games, including a playoff game, and they were 1-4 in those games. And the one that they won was like a 12-11 game against the Jets, who also didn't have a quarterback that day. So it's one of those things where if the Dolphins have their starting quarterback, they're going to be all right. If they don't, they're not going to be all right. And by the way, their starting quarterback has been injury prone. So does that, continue, or does that change?
It just feels like to me that it's pretty wild if they roll the dice on it, right? Like just him. Now, you wouldn't want to bring in competition, but I do wonder, like, they feel like they're clearly in a win now mode. If there was some sort of injury early to him, do they call on Stafford? I don't even know if they can move Stafford, but like, is it that type of situation where if he gets knocked early in the season, they would be pretty nimble to try to get somebody established in there?
I'm not quite sure that would be the next move.
Okay.
Because, well, let me say this. If you make that move, you're not just speaking for the one season. You're saying to everybody on the roster and everybody in the stands, we've lost confidence in this guy's ability to stay healthy.
Sure.
And that's crossing a Rubicon, and you can't come back from that. Yeah. It just doesn't fly that way. And so we're not there yet, obviously, but if Tua gets hurt, right now it's Mike White.
Yeah.
This is funny, who came in for the Jets last year when Zach Wilson was proven to be somewhat of a bust, and he was fine until he got hurt.
Yeah.
And I think it took him like a game and a half, and he was hurt. So the Dolphins have a starting quarterback who's been hurt a lot and a backup who's been hurt a lot. It's a perfect quarterback room.
Not ideal for a team that's as loaded everywhere else as that one is. Hey, I want to ask you, is Mike McDaniel as much – we see these clips, and he's pretty damn funny. Is he as fun day-to-day as he appears to be?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's very unorthodox. He is hard to figure out in how he, thinks. Obviously, when he's calling plays and when he's coaching a football team, it works for him to the point where they made the playoffs in his first year last year. But he is just a different kind of person. The first time that I met him, he spent 10 minutes talking about my glasses. And I was like, okay, yeah, Ray-Ban? and now what do you got?
Right.
And he was like discussing the history of his glasses and his optometrist visits. And I'm like, this is the strangest get-to-know-you conversation I've ever had with an NFL coach, and I've had a few, and this one is the strangest. But do the people that cover him enjoy it? Yeah, absolutely.
I would.
Because you never know what he's going to bring. And do the players so far like it? Yeah. They had a losing streak last year. I think it was 4 games or something like that, and he didn't lose the locker room, even though he was in his first year. And he doesn't look necessarily the part of a head coach, but, he was fine.
Oh, that's great. I'll get you out of here on this one, buddy. We had the Heat lose last night to the Nuggets. The Panthers play tonight. I'm curious. What's the pecking order, South Florida, from a sports perspective? What moves the needle the most down there in terms of the professional? Heck, 20 years ago, when I was around down there a little bit, you could make an argument Miami Hurricane football ran the town. What's kind of the pecking order now in 2023 down in South Florida from a sports perspective?
Oh, yeah. There was a time where I think the year was like 1989, 1990. The Hurricanes were in the middle of their 5 national championships string, and they had more season ticket holders than the Dolphins.
Wow.
That has changed. The Hurricanes have fallen on hard times. Everybody else now is recruiting in South Florida. The Heat have won 3 championships. The Panthers, they are obviously in the Stanley Cup Finals now. This is their second one. And, the Dolphins are still looking to return to that height. They haven't been to the Super Bowl since like 1984.
Yeah.
They haven't won it since 1974. So folks are starved for Dolphins' success. If the Dolphins are successful, they run the town.
Yeah.
If the Dolphins are not successful, then it's kind of like a Dolphins Heat, amalgam there, that they fight for whatever they can get. And normally, out of all of those, the winner is the beach.
On that note, as it is 61 degrees and rainy up here today, thank you so much, sir, for your time. Always appreciate you.
It's my pleasure.
That's our good buddy Armando Salguero, NFL writer at Outkick. Always one weather shot from Armando. He always gets one in.
Normally he's at a pool when he's doing this hit.
I always tell people that too. Like, people are always hard, like, on the South Florida fandom. I was down there. Ohio State was playing Miami in like 11 down there. It was the Luke Fickell year, not a great Ohio State team, but they were down there playing Miami, and so they played Saturday night, and then Sunday was a Dolphins game, and there was a lot of empty seats at the Dolphins. So my boss at the time had never been to like South Beach, like truly South Beach. I'm like, well, let's go. We'll go over there. So I took him over to South Beach, and we get to South Beach, and there looks to be about 200,000 people on South Beach, and you go, this is why there's empty seats.
Yeah.
Would you want to sit? You have DVR. You watch it later. You're not giving up your Sunday. The weather's too good. I'm not going to waste it at an arena.
Correct.
And that's always something that people, they don't have good fans. No, they have good fans. They've got great fans down there. It's just they have a lot of options to choose from. And I felt that way too. I always felt it was a Canes town in the early 2000s when they were winning those national titles with Ed Reed, and Ed did. I can't remember if Ed won one or he did. But it certainly felt like a hurricane town then. I did not know that about the season tickets though. That's crazy that in the late 80s, early 90s, there were more Miami Hurricane season tickets in Miami than Dolphins. That's crazy.
Is that pre-Marino?
No, that's Marino.
Yeah.
Late 80s, early 90s is Marino.
Yeah. I was thinking early 80s.
No, that would have been while Marino was with the Dolphins. That's an incredible number that they had that.
They turned, and now that the Dolphins Stadium, Hard Rock, they've done a great job converting it and tweaking it.
Yeah.
Modernizing it with the sunshade and everything, but it's just one big club. Everywhere you go, there's club this.
Yeah.
There's a DJ there.
It's a bad location.
People aren't in the seats; they're in the clubs.
Yeah, and it's a bad location. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere, so it's a bit of a tough sell. We'll do the categories with the Dolphins. Get a little higher, lower, better, worse coming up at the bottom of the hour. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. For a team of injury lawyers dedicated to every client every day, call 1-800-ELK-OHIO. Elk and Elk's proud partner of your Cleveland Browns. All right, let's take a little bit of a deep dive on the Miami Dolphins here quickly. Gibbe, favorite uniform for Miami all time?
It would have to be the Merino. They got the mid '80s.
They got that one, and they also have like the '72 Dolphins with the big thick stripe that are perfect. Those are both great.
Yeah,
they've been in this version for a while. I think their fans down there have hated this version as soon as they started wearing them and want to get back as soon as possible. And all indications are that they will go back to what they used to wear. It feels like every time they wear them, they get a gorgeous uniform.
Oh yeah,
like it's beautiful. Like the colors fit.
It's the colors. That's
fit.
The colors.
The aqua is perfect. The orange is perfect. It is so specifically South Florida when you see it. I think that their throwback uniform is perfect. I think that their branding is like the Miami Dolphins. It's just flawless.
Yeah,
they crushed it. I agree with you on the stadium. So I have been before, and then I've been through part of the renovation, but not all the way renovation. It used to be just simply a baseball field.
Yeah, it was.
Really?
Yeah, and dirt.
Is the press
painted,
box still in the corner?
Green. Yeah, I don't like the press box setup.
Yeah,
that part's brutal, and the windows don't open.
Oh, that's right.
This is what we ran into last year. Like the windows up above open, so you can hang like a microphone out.
Yeah, but you can't.
Like the windows themselves don't open, which is just utter stupidity.
Yeah. So they made the decision to throw the money into the current stadium, and it got them like the canopies and the coverage. They had to get people out
all
of the sun.
Clubs.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, when I say clubs, like during the game, you can hear the DJ. Like it's a club. There's couches and like you can watch the game, but there's a full club and bar.
Yeah.
On either end zone, and it's just a party. They've set it up like if we're going to get people, this is going to have to be a party atmosphere.
Yeah, for sure. Road trip, not drive, but I would fly.
Yeah.
It's an all-timer. It's a great trip. It's a great two-nighter. Flying on a Friday, out on a Sunday, that's about as big a win as can be, especially if it's inclement weather here.
I feel like it's a Monday out.
I guess you'd know better than me.
Yeah.
On a 1 o'clock, you probably would rather fly out Monday morning.
Yeah, because there's a post game. There's a post game party somewhere.
Yeah, Saturday in then and Monday.
Saturday
go
night,
3 nights.
South Beach. By the way, the one thing, like, go to the Yardbird in Miami. It's not totally all. It's not all the way into South Beach.
Yeah.
It's just on the outskirts of it. The Yardbird had the best skillet fried chicken.
Really?
I've ever had it, or something random.
Yeah,
I saw it on something on Food Network. We went out. It lives up to the billing.
It was
and
great.
then some. It was unbelievable.
Yeah. The food's awesome down there. Joe's Stone Crab, all of it. It's as big a win as can be. Must do thing on a road trip. I think we nailed most of that. The people seeing it South Beach speaks for itself.
Yes.
Just the people watching is pretty great. I like South Florida a lot. I think it's a lot like. I feel the same way about South Florida as I feel about like certain parts of Southern California. Like I could live there, but I'd have to be really wealthy.
Yes.
Like you don't want to not have means because then it starts to suck.
Well, yeah, there are the haves and the have-nots.
Oh gosh,
it's a
huge gap.
It is
you don't want to be.
It's a big gap.
You don't want to be that.
No.
Player I'd want on their current roster. I mean, Tyreek Hill would be a lot of fun.
Boy, lining him up would be
that would work pretty good.
Quite the blast.
Jalen Waddle's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Jalen Ramsey, they get a lot of studs. They get a lot of stars. On
it's
got
to be Hill.
It's Tyreek Hill.
Deal
That's
with
the correct answer.
You deal with any of the baggage he brings to the table.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Who's your all-time favorite Dolphin?
I don't know. If I have an answer for that.
I always really appreciated Marino and felt sorry for him that, I mean, he got to live in South Florida and had a great life and all of that, but just from the standpoint of it felt like they were never able to put a team around him that could go. You know, they brought in Jimmy Johnson towards the end of his career and they kind of tried to transition into a run team, but they got just drilled his last game against Jacksonville. There just wasn't ever a team around him that could go. I think it stands – I think one of the most stupefying records of all time is when he threw for 5,000 yards in '84.
Yeah,
because people weren't doing that.
No.
And he threw for 5,000.
I did like Mark Duper simply for his face mask.
The old school face mask.
The old school face mask. Now
The
that I
two
think
marks.
about that,
Yeah. Zach Thomas. Was good
I was going to say Zach Thomas, Zonka.
Yeah. I'm so tired of those perfect Dolphin guys though. Like all the times with all their nonsense.
Their champagne toasts and everything.
Yeah. Yes, they're a playoff team. They're a contender. If two is healthy, they're all of those things.
I agree with you. Like, I don't need to bring in a guy for competition.
No.
But why wouldn't you, after what happened last year, have a guy ready to go?
Have
like
somebody
a
ready.
name.
Yeah, be ready. Biggest offseason addition, Jalen Ramsey. They brought in one of the best corners in the league. So they're ready-made if Tua Tagovailoa can stay healthy. And, in fact, this dovetails into our next conversation on higher or lower. ESPN ranking the roster cores. I can tell you Miami is very high. I can tell you the Browns are probably about where I think most of you think that they would be. We'd get into that coming up next. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Currently the Browns daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Time for a little better or worse or higher or lower. Presented by Keep It Fun Ohio from the Ohio Lottery, who reminds you to set time and spending limits when you gamble. AP is here as well on the Twisted Tea Hotline. Hello, Gibby. Hello, AP.
AP.
How's it going, guys?
Oh, we're doing real
well. Are you working from the stadium today?
Yes, and I'm currently, there's a cart going by.
You really should just come work at the undisclosed location like I've offered 40 times.
Yeah, well, I didn't expect to be in a bad spot today, and I definitely should have, once again, stopped by the undisclosed location. So that is absolutely my bad, but it looks like the noise has now cleared. Can you guys hear me fine?
Yeah, you're more than fine. You're fine.
We're good.
Yeah, you're safe, pal. You're
Cool.
safe. So are you in the catacombs? You're not in the press box?
Well, the spot that I have normally been going to in the press box, which is one of the radio booths, is now also under construction. So the construction is just really hampering my ability to find a quiet spot, it seems. I thought I was in one now. I just went to a different floor, but then there was a loud cart rolling by. So
wait, what radio booth's under construction?
I don't think it's yours, unfortunately, Gibbs.
No,
It's,
that's good. I don't
it's
need
one of
it
the
under
ones-
construction.
Yeah.
Gibby
I don't know.
goes.
I don't know what it's used for, but it's not yours.
I wish you had a camera on Gibby's face when the when AP dropped the radio booth construction.
What? Because none of those booths are supposed to be under construction.
Well,
I think it might be a football booth or like stadium, like a stadium booth. I don't know. There's so much construction.
Now he's in spin mode. Nice job, Poisal. All right. All right, boys, let's get into it. A little higher or lower this week from ESPN's Seth Walder, ESPN Analytics.
All right.
It is ranking the NFL roster cores, stacking all 32 teams' top 5 players.
Okay.
Core defined as the 5 most important players to a team, the guys each roster is built around. Let's dive into the rankings. Average ages were calculated by taking each player's age of September 7th, 2023, when the Lions and Chiefs are set to kick off the 2023 season. The Cleveland Browns come in at number 11, but my bigger question is, the roster core they have listed is Deshaun Watson, Myles Garrett, Nick Chubb, Denzel Ward, and Joel Bitonio. Bishop, agree, disagree? Any changes you would make to that core?
No, I think that's the right. I think that's the right core that I would want representing for this year at least. And I think that we're appropriate at 11. I think the rest of our roster is better than some of the teams ahead of us, but I think that, look, this is all going to come down to, like every conversation we've had all offseason, it's just going to come down to Deshaun, and if he can elevate to what he was, because if he can, then the rest of those guys, well, that'll elevate that number as well. If you get Deshaun from 2 years ago when he played in Houston at that level when he led the NFL in passing, then you're going to be a top 5 core. But right now, we haven't seen that in orange and brown yet.
Yeah, and he says it specifically. If Deshaun gets back to his Houston level of play, Cleveland would fly up this list.
Yeah.
Poisal, your thoughts on the Browns at number 11 and their core?
Yeah, Beau took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, obviously, all of this has to come down to, can Deshaun get back to that form? Obviously, we all think he can, and based on what we saw last week, he will. But no, the other players on this list, right? Myles Garrett, Nick Chubb, Denzel Ward, Joel Bitonio. When all those guys got extensions before Deshaun was here several years, over the last few years, it was all in mind that those guys were the core. That was the talk of what they meant to this team when they were here. And so I wouldn't change the list of guys that he has on this as our roster core, and I absolutely would have them higher than number 11, assuming, we see Deshaun able to get back to what the form he was at with the Texans.
Next.
Higher or lower?
On to Mr. Poisal. And number 1, the Kansas City Chiefs. Their roster core, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, defensive tackle Chris Jones, center Creed Humphrey, and guard Joe Thuney. Are they just right, or should they be lower, that core, Anthony Poisal?
I don't really think you can argue against this at all. I just think Pat Mahomes, the weight that he has on the entire roster and really on the entire league, every game he plays it makes the Chiefs a good number one choice here. I think the Bengals and Eagles are super close to this spot here, but Mahomes is always going to lock the Chiefs into these kinds of power rankings. Kelsey's still the top tight end in this league. Chris Jones, he's a top 5 defensive tackle. Creed Humphrey, probably the best center in the league. Joe Thuney, also one of the best at his positions too. So, but Mahomes is definitely the one that makes this a true number one core. So I don't have any where else to move this. They're definitely number one in my
Bishop,
opinion.
right where they are, or should they be lower based on the core?
Well, if you're doing the core as a whole, I could argue they should be lower. But you're also weighting. I think what he's doing, and he says so kind of in this postscript, is he's weighting quarterback more, giving it more weight, which is appropriate. So if that's the case, then yeah, I think it is. I think the number that I think is best about this to describe kind of like where the Chiefs are, their average core age is 28.6. The Bengals are second on list, and I agree that they should be second. Their average core age is 25.6. So it's a 3-year difference. The Bengals' best players, with the exception of Orlando Brown, are young dudes. So they're in a big window here in Cincinnati.
Next.
Higher or lower?
The Bengals are number 2. The Eagles number 3. Their core, Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Lane Johnson, Hassan Reddick, and Darius Slay. Takes us to number 4. And the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins core, Tua, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Ramsey, Jalen Waddle, and tackle Teron Armstead. Bishop, higher, lower, or just right for the Miami Dolphins?
I like Tua a lot, but can you imagine? Here's a hell of a what if for you. Couldn't they have just taken Justin Herbert?
Yes.
So imagine if they had this roster and they had Herbert. And this is, I'm not doing this meant as a shot at Tua's talent, because I think he proved last year when he's healthy, he's really good.
Yes.
Problem is he's never been healthy, going all the way back to Alabama. Armando, we had him on. It's not just the hip, he had an ankle at Alabama too. So he's had serious injuries literally his entire playing career going back to college. So that has to be weighed more, in which case I think maybe they ought to be a little bit lower, just because I don't know how long Tua can stay upright. But if you just take Justin Herbert and his health and put him on this team, you could argue Miami's number 1.
Poisal?
Yeah, Bo, that's a great point about Herbert. This would be easily, I think, a top 3, top 2, maybe even number 1 core if this had Justin Herbert in it. But every time we talk about the Dolphins in any kind of power rankings with this, it always comes back to Tua's health, and that's not going to change with what we're talking about right now. I mean, you see that they've got, again, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. That, with a healthy Tua, is arguably the best receiving duo in the league. At least that's the level that they played at the first half of the season last year when Tua was healthy. And then, Jalen Ramsey, yeah, he's definitely, I think he's past 30 years old now. He's getting older, but he had a terrific season last year, and he's still going to be a huge boost for that defense. So I would actually not move the Dolphins on this list. But again, it just all comes back to if Tua can stay healthy. When healthy, I do think this is a top 5 core. I think they're right fit here at number 4. But it's just all about his health, and that's just such a big question mark. So we'll see if he's able to stay healthy at all this season.
I feel like some of their other defensive players should be in the core. I don't know. I mean, only one defensive player. They've got some solid players.
Yeah, but I mean,
but it also just
Hill's probably the best overall receiver in football. Waddle is on a short list, and then you have to have the quarterback. In the core, like he's the question mark. It's just huge, and it's just health.
Yeah, I don't know what Armstead. He's good.
Yeah.
So, next.
Higher or lower?
Buffalo is number 5. Their core is Josh Allen, maybe Stephon Diggs, Von Miller, Tre'Davious White, and Matt Milano. Takes us to number 6, Beau Bishop. The Dallas Cowboys core, Dak Prescott, Micah Parsons, CeeDee Lamb, Zach Martin, Trevon Diggs. Higher, lower, or just right, Mr. Bishop?
I would have them maybe a little lower.
Really?
Maybe just a touch. Parsons and Lamb are elite. Martin's elite. Diggs is really good on the interception front, but he gives up a lot too. And I wonder if Prescott's seen his best days in the rearview mirror. So I would probably move them down just a touch on this list. In terms of who I would move, there's a bunch here. You know, the real anomaly here, and we're running up against it, so I'm going to bounce around just for a second here, if you'll permit me. The real tough one in here is San Francisco at 10, because their core is as elite as it gets with Bosa, Trent Williams, McCaffrey, Kittle, and Warner, but they don't have a quarterback in their core. And they're the only team, you know, of the top 11, 12 that a quarterback is not in their core. So, like, what do you do with the 49ers? In fact, you got to go all the way down. When's the next time there's a team without a quarterback in their core? They might be the only one on this list.
I think the 49ers are the toughest team to rank on this list.
Agree.
How good can a core truly be without a quarterback?
All right, I'm all the way down to no. All right, the next time a quarterback doesn't make a core is 26 with Tampa Bay. So the 49ers are 10 without a quarterback in their core. Tampa Bay is the next team at 26 that doesn't have a quarterback in the core. Washington doesn't as well.
That's it.
And then that's it. That's the
it.
list. Everybody else has a quarterback in their core 5.
I feel like Seattle's core should be ranked higher. If we're talking big picture, Poisal, I'll defer to you here. I mean, Geno Smith, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Tariq Woolen, Charles Cross.
It's just about, can Geno stack it?
Yes. That's the question is, can he repeat what he did last year? Then if he can, then I think their core absolutely should be bigger, because then you look at all of their top positions, wide receiver, cornerback. I mean, you go at any of their positions on the roster and they have good players. It's all just about, and Geno played just as well as he did last year. I don't know if he'll be able to play better. Last year just seemed as good as Geno Smith could possibly play, and he is getting older. But if Geno can play what he played last year, then the Seahawks at 14, this is way too low on this list. And they honestly could be in the top 10.
I'm going to give you another one. I think Baltimore's too high. We were talking about Miami with their quarterback issues with the health standpoint. When's the last time Lamar Jackson played a whole year?
When did he play in December?
I mean, it's been a long time
yeah.
since he's been healthy for a whole year and hasn't missed games.
I'll also add, he's got a 1-3 playoff record. It's a roster that looks good on paper, but they haven't. When have they been able to really prove it?
Yeah,
in the postseason.
And I will also tell you this: from an average core age, the Texans are at 23.4 with C.J. Tunsil, Will Anderson, Stingley, and Damian Pierce.
Young kids, yeah.
Not great. But the one, again, that we've talked about in the offseason, and it's a shame that Jamison Williams got suspended, but him, Penei Sewell, Aiden Hutchinson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Goff, average core age 23.6.
Yeah, they're young.
Both of those teams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Good job, AP.
AP, come to the
Appreciate it,
condo,
guys.
buddy. Come to the condo.
The undisclosed location, Gibby.
How long are?
Yeah,
I was going to say you just gave it away.
Nah, I didn't.
We're going to be here until they drag us out.
That's our
So
goal.
That could be early July.
That's what I like.
We'll see. Good talking to you, buddy.
Appreciate it, guys. Talk to you.
So much more to come. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. I saw this quote from Burrow was asked. He's so tongue-in-cheek on everything. If you don't know him, it comes across such a different way. But he was asked what his goals are this season. He said to be the best in the world.
He came out. He said, he goes, Mahomes is the best. I'm like, well, yeah, but you're no slouch there, buddy.
He's right there, but I do think it's fun. Like, what do you want him to say in those situations?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
here's
I think
the quote
they're looking for fodder for that whole contract extension. He said he's the best. You got to pay him like he's the best. Why is there no contract?
Yeah, Burrow on Pat Mahomes. I don't think there's any argument now. It's Pat until somebody has a better year than he's had. He's the one to knock off. Yeah, he is. He's the king of the mountain at this point. But Burrow's had as much success as anybody against him with that Cincinnati core. I am surprised that deal's not done with him yet, but we'll see. We'll see how it all goes. Interesting week with mini camps this week. So, and then the NFL kind of takes a little bit of vacation. We'll keep you updated on everything as the week goes along. We're back tomorrow. Thanks for listening, everybody. The next level's coming up next. Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland.